With systems, there is some general vocabulary that you need to know and use. Some of these include input, output, and component. All of these can be classified as either energy or matter. In order to know what is an input or an output, we also need to define the boundary. And last but not least, draw interactions and relationships. The first thing to identify is the boundary. Defining a boundary is not always an easy thing to do, but certainly is an important one. In order to do that, we need to know what scale we are dealing with. For example, on the ground level, you might not necessarily notice where the desert transitions into the Sahel and then transitions into forest, but on a more global scale, being able to measure the rate at which the Sahara is expanding indicates to us a lot of things about global change. In other cases, identifying the boundary is much more simple. For example, in the forest, the boundary is that edge of the forest. Or the bottle of the world's longest running sealed terrarium. We can also study smaller systems within a much larger system and investigate the interactions that occur between those and what kind of threats or solutions might arise from that. Now, within the boundary contain the components, which can be matter or energy. These things can also be inputs and outputs. How we know what is an input and an output is based on the direction of the arrows that we use to draw, indicating direction. Sometimes, when matter is introduced as an input, another component will transform that into a different component. Sometimes a output is produced from an interaction as well. Not every system is that simple, and that's part of what makes science so interesting, is that the interactions are pretty complex and offer a lot of points to do experimentation or investigation. Let's see how this could actually apply in real life. This is my 80-gallon aquarium, and let's look at the components, starting with the South American species of fish. I have 5 red tetras, 6 Corydoras catfish, and 8 Otocinclus. These are very effective algae eaters, so if you have any problems with that in your aquarium, I highly recommend them. I also have several Asian species of fish, including ghost shrimp, 3 pearl gouramis. This one is Nemo. One of my newer ones, Concha, and Perla. I also have 2 gold gouramis, starting with Dorada and Oro. My aquarium is lit with an LED light. It has a light changing feature. I can change it to, I don't know, maybe some 12 or 16 different colors. I also have an air pump that is attached to 2 sponge filters, which provide mechanical and biological filtration. And that's also attached to an air stone in the back. I have 2 heaters in there to keep the aquarium at a stable temperature. Usually I don't have the light cycling like this, though. To see the complexity in the interactions between components as well as inputs and outputs, let's say I feed my fish some freeze-dried bloodworms, which are a great source of protein for my omnivorous animals. That's introducing a new input, a new component, and that's going to create some interactions within there. I now have inputted food into the aquarium, which is being consumed by the fish and will be converted into feces, which we can also call poo. Other animals, like the shrimp and corydoras, will break that poo up and convert it into smaller bits that the bacteria can convert into waste. Meanwhile, the plants are going to be absorbing that waste and turning it into growth. There's other interactions in there too, such as light being introduced so that the plants can do photosynthesis. Inputs, outputs, and components can all be matter and energy. Focus on the task at hand by only including the relevant components, inputs, and outputs, and that you can show relationships and interactions with those arrows. To review, a system is a group of related components within a specific area. That boundary depends on the scale of the system that you are trying to study. Inputs and outputs are matter and energy that leave and enter the system and interact with or are produced from the interactions within the system. Open systems allow for the flow of energy in and out, as well as matter.